Hey guys, this is MTG Degree, my name is Luke, and today we're bringing you the set review for Dragons of Tarkir. The first thing that I'd like to mention though is we aren't going to go over rare or mythic cards because you're not going to see these that much in your pool, so you can just look at them and kind of decide for yourself whether or not they're good. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to go over are lands, and in this set there are only basic lands. This was probably really to push the idea of only 2 colors for those dragon clans, and so just stick to 2 colors. 3 is really tempting, and you're always going to want to try to pull in every big card that you have, but the more inconsistent the mana base, the more likely that that card is just going to rot in your hand. The next thing we're going to go over are the artifacts for this set. They're awful. Alright, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the removal in the set. And the first thing is going to be this unusual cycle of removal that they've included. So that's Surge of Righteousness, Encase in Ice, Self-Inflicted Wound, Rending Volley, and Display of Dominance. Each one of these only hits 2 colors. Therefore, I would say don't run them main board, they're too specific. However, they're extremely powerful out of the sideboard. So for example, if you're playing against green-white, Self-Inflicted Wound is something that you might want to bring in and will just upgrade the power of your removal against your opponent. So don't mainboard these, but definitely be aware if they're in your pool. In white, we've got 2 pretty good removal spells. The first one is Enduring Victory. This card destroys a target attacking or blocking creature and bolsters 1. So you get rid of their stuff, your stuff gets bigger. Good in my book. The second one is Pacifism, and this is pseudo removal. It just means that the creature can't attack or block. So if the creature is kind of a utility creature, then Pacifism's not the best for it, but creature damage is important, and Pacifism will stop that from happening. For removal in blue, we have Ojutai's Breath. For 2 and a blue, this instant taps their creature, and then it can't untap on their next untap step. And it has Rebound, so you get to cast it at the beginning of your next upkeep. Now, it's not strictly removal, but it does do some sweet things to get their creatures out of the way. For example, if you've got a slightly stalled board and you really want to get some damage in, Ojutai's Breath, at their end step, you can tap a creature, and then it immediately becomes your upkeep. You tap another creature, and all of a sudden you're getting in a lot of damage. Black, of course, gets awesome removal. The first one is Deathwind, which scales up as you have more mana. Flatten, which is a more aggressively costed Throttle. And Ultimate Price, which hits everything except for a few dragons. These are all awesome pieces of removal, and play all of them. For removal in red, we've got Draconic Roar, deals 3 damage to target creature most of the time. Roast, 5 damage for 2 mana, I'm in. Tail Lash, I mean your creatures are hitting their creatures. I've been a fan of this ever since Savage Punch was released. And the last one is Sarkhan's Rage, which notably can go to their face as well as to a creature. So even though it deals 2 damage to you a lot of the time, the versatility makes up for this loss of life, in my opinion. Green has 1 removal spell, Epic Confrontation, a reprint of my favorite card ever, Savage Punch, and I was happy punching people back in cons, and I am continuing to be happy to punch people in this set. So go out there and punch some people at your pre-release. Not really. Don't do that. The next card type we're going to talk about are enchantments, and they're just not that great here. Just don't play enchantments. Alright, so the next topic is card draw spells, and the first one is Sight Beyond Sight for 3 and a blue. And it basically means draw 2, but filter through 4 cards. And that's really nice, because if it's at the point in the game that you're casting a draw spell, you're probably not wanting lands, and this will just help you filter those out super well. So I super like Sight Beyond Sight. The next one is Anticipate, which is 1 and a blue, and it's pick up 3 cards, take 1, put 2 on the bottom. And this is great for the reasons that Sight Beyond Sight is great. It's just going to help filter out your draws, so they're a lot more reasonable. The last card draw spell is kind of an interesting one, which is Grave Purge, 2 and a black. At some points you can just cycle it out for 2 and a black, but late in the game, when there's a lot of stuff in your graveyard, taking all your best creatures, putting them on top, and then drawing the absolute best one immediately is absolutely fantastic. And from that point onwards, you'll just draw a creature and draw a creature and draw a creature, which is pretty much what you want to be doing in Limited. So this is actually pretty darn good late game. Alright, so our next category is combat tricks, and we'll start off with combat tricks in white. So the first combat trick is Center Soul, and this gives a creature protection from a color, so you can charge in your guy, and when it gets blocked, you give it protection from the color, and then it blows that creature away. And then it gets rebound later, and this to me basically means I'm attacking now and winning the fight, and then later I'll make a creature unblockable by giving it protection from whatever blocker you leave behind. The next one is Artful Maneuver. It gives a creature +2/+2, and then it also gets rebound for another +2/+2 next round. So I can really see myself attacking once, destroying a defender, and then attacking again with something even bigger the next turn, and basically being obnoxious. Combat tricks in blue? We don't need any of those in this set. Combat tricks in black are looking pretty good. The first one is Butcher's Glee for 1 and a black. You get lifelink, +3/+0, and you get regeneration. So basically you can take any old creature, jam it in there, and then it's never gonna die. It might take something with it. It'll give you life. It's all you need. And then the next one is Coat with Venom. It is a single black for +1/+2 and Death Touch. We all know how annoying Death Touch is. In red, I'm mainly looking at one combat trick, which is Kindled Fury. For a single red, you get +1/+0 and First Strike. This isn't amazing, but you get what you get. In green, we've got 2 good combat tricks. The first one is Dromoka's Gift. This one is 4 and a green, and it simply bolsters 4 at instant speed. Now, this is pretty darn good, but the thing to keep in mind is that later on, when people are more used to the set, just attacking with your weakest creature may very strongly signal Dromoka's Gift is in your hand. So it's very good at pre-release, and it gets worse as people get more used to this combat trick. The next green combat trick is Press the Advantage for 2 green. And it says 2 creatures get +2/+2 and trample. So this one is just really flexible. The trample's nice. It gives you basically +4/+4 spread out, which I actually like better than if it just said +4/+4 trample on one creature. Alright, so now we're moving on to creatures, and we're going to start with white creatures. The first white creature I want to talk about is Misthoof Kirin. For 2 and a white, you get a 2/1 flyer with Vigilance and Megamorph. The next creature is Sandcrafter Mage. It's 2 and a white for a 2/2, and when it comes down, it bolsters 1. The next one is Dromoka Warrior. For 1 and a white, you get a 3/1 vanilla creature, so it's just aggressively costed on the power. The last white creature I'd like to talk about is Aven Tactician. For 4 and a white, you get a 2/3 flyer, and when it comes down, it bolsters 1. Alright, well, let's talk about creatures in blue. The first one is Ojutai Interceptor for 3 and a blue. It is a 3/1 with flying, and for 3 and a blue, it gets Megamorph. So this is just an okay costed flyer for you to beat down in the air, and if you have the extra mana late game and you draw this guy, just make him a bigger flyer and he'll tussle better with what's going on up there. The next card is Jeskai Sage 2.0, and it is Palace Familiar for 1 and a blue. It is a 1/1 creature with flying, and when it dies, draw a card. So it can chip away in the air a little bit. If something big shows up in the air for them, it can block for a turn, draw you a card. I like this a lot more than I liked Jeskai Sage, and that wasn't a bad card. The next creature is Silumgar Sorcerer. This thing is awesome. It is a 1/blue for a 2/1 creature with flash and flying. It also has exploit, which means when it comes down you may sacrifice a creature, and if you do, you get to counter a spell. So it can count as just a counter spell for 1/blue, you flash it down, exploit itself, and you counter some big spell. Or you can flash it down at the end of their turn, you've suddenly got a flyer that helps you get to lethal, or you can flash it in during combat to change the combat math in your favor. This thing is so darn versatile that it's hard for me to say that it's anything but fantastic. The next card is Ojutai's Summons, and this is 3/blue, and it's a sorcery that creates a 2/2 flyer. But it also has rebound, so the next turn you get another 2/2 flyer. So basically you're getting 4 power, 4 toughness in the air for 5. That's not bad, and I'll buy into that. The last blue creature is Monastery Loremaster for 3 and a blue. So it is a 3/2, so and it's got Megamorph for 5 and a blue. You can return a non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard to your hand. So basically, he helps you curve out okay if you just want to play him on turn 4. But if it gets later in the game, then you can have a creature and get the value of the extra card. Alright, so next we're going to talk about creatures in black. The first one is Bloodchin Rager. This one is a 2/2 for 2, and whenever it attacks, warriors can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So it comes down early, and it's extremely relevant late. This thing is great. The next card is Hand of Silumgar. For 1 and a black, you get a 2/1 with Death Touch. As annoying to block as Typhoid Rats, and just as useful late game when it can just sit there and stop their biggest guy from attacking. The next card is Rakshasa Gravecaller. For 4 and a black, you get a 3/6 with Exploit. So when it comes down, you may sacrifice a creature, and if you do, you get 2 2/2 zombies. So if you just throw away a creature that's, your 2/2, your early drop, you can kind of upgrade it. The last black card we're going to talk about is Vulturous Aven. For 3 and a black, you get a 2/3 flyer with Exploit. And the Exploit ability is that if you sacrifice a creature, then you can draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. This is pretty darn good. If you need those cards late game, you slam this thing down, throw away your crappiest creature, and you get 2 more. Alright, next up is red creatures. The first one I want to talk about is Tarkir Pummeler, which is 4 and a red, and when you have Formidable active, then for 3 red, each creature you control must be blocked by 2 or more creatures. So this makes combat a nightmare for your opponent as soon as you have that Formidable active and can pay for it. The next one is Hardened Berserker for 2 and a red. You get a 3/2, so fairly costed, and when it attacks, your next spell that turn costs 1 less to cast. So it can sneak in combat tricks that you weren't quite able to cast before, can make your next creature cheaper, whatever. That's just gravy on top of the okay body for the price. The next card is Sabertooth Outrider for 3 and a red. This is a 4/2 that has Trample, and when you have Formidable active, it has First Strike. So basically on a clogged up board, this is a 4/2 with First Strike all the time. That's pretty nice. The next card that I'm giving a spot is Summit Prowler. 2 red for just a 4/3. In a 2-color set, he shouldn't be too hard to cast, and there is something to be said for just curving out with vanilla creatures that are fairly costed. Just getting the beatdowns with simple creatures can win you games. The last red creature we're going to talk about is Stormcrag Elemental. For 5 and a red, you get a 5/5 with Trample. And you can Megamorph him for 4 red, and you know, this can come down on turn 3, on turn 6, you turn it over, you have a 6/6 with trample. Pretty nice, just a big dude. Alright, well, last but not least, we have our green creatures. The first one I want to mention is Stampeding Elk Herd. This is 3 green for a 5/5 creature that has Formidable. When it attacks, all your creatures gain trample. So it's very reasonably costed, and it has relevant ability. Love it. The next one is Aerie Bowmasters. For 2 green, it has Reach, and it's a 3/4. So unless you're megamorphing those dragons for, 7 mana, this thing will actually block and kill them. However, even if they do megamorph those dragons for 7 mana, you can megamorph this guy for 5 and a green, and then it becomes a 4/5, which actually blocks pretty much all of the dragons. Lots of flyers in the set. Only the, dragon lords can get through this guy. The next one is Guardian Shieldbearer. It's a 2/1 for 1 and a green, and that's just kind of on curve, whatever. But if you get it later in the game, you can put it face down, megamorph it for 3 and a green, and you get a +1/+1 counter on another creature you control. So then if it comes in later in the game, it doesn't feel as bad as if you draw a 2/1 elk in cons. The next creature is Dragon Scarred Bear, and it's 2 and a green for a 3/2. So once again, fairly costed. But it has Formidable, and for 2 and a green, you can regenerate it. That's pretty good. That makes it a threat that sticks late in the game. The next card is Salt Road Ambushers for 3 and a green. It comes down as a 3/3, so just a little expensive for what it gives you. But it does have Megamorph, so you can make it come down as a 4/4 if you want, and that is for 3 green. And its text is, whenever another creature turns face up, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. So if you're megamorphing stuff, then it'll get 3 +1/+1 counters. And since this is with Fate Reforged, if you manifest a creature and turn it face up, that guy will also get 2 +1/+1 counters. Now the last creature I'd like to talk about is Scaleguard Sentinels. For green, it's a 2/3, which is pretty nice, big body. And if you reveal a dragon when you cast it, it gets +1/+1. So the dream with this card is you play it on turn 2, and it's a 3/4. That is a big body early. Later in the game, you're maybe more likely to have a dragon in your hand, or it's just a reasonably costed creature. Alright, well that wraps things up for our Dragons of Tarkir set review. I hope you enjoyed looking through these cards with me. If you enjoyed yourself, feel free to subscribe, like the video, and this has been MTG Degree. My name is Luke, and I'll see you next video.